Hey, welcome in, fellowship, family, and friends. As always, great to see you. By the way, did you know that today is National Eat a Bagel Day? That's right. So if you were here in the house, you could have a bagel because we serve bagels here at the fellowship. But if you're not, still, you can go grab you a bagel today on National Bagel Day. I don't know what the origins are, but I can tell you what one person said they believe the origins to be. They believe that National Bagel Day started back in the 1400s because Polish women, as they were having children, it became known that they were given a bagel while they were in the midst of delivery, and that's what started National Bagel Day here in our country. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty fascinating story, so go grab you a bagel today, but we are in the Christmas season. I'm excited to see you. I pray your Christmas tree is up. If it's not, elbow somebody next to you right now and go, hey, I'm going to get my Christmas tree up after church today and get that thing done. And by the way, our biggest service of the year is Christmas Eve. We have a 5 o'clock and a 7 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be spectacular. I just can hardly wait. It's going to be so awesome. You don't want to miss it. So it's on Friday night, December the 23rd, obviously. So rather than go out on Christmas Eve, we want you to spend time with your family on Christmas Eve. Come to church on Christmas Eve with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and let's have a spectacular Christmas Eve service. We'll do the traditional candle lighting, although it'll be not candles exactly with a flame, but it'll be a lot of fun, and you're not going to want to miss it. Now, we started a Christmas series of talks, a collection of talks last week, and I talked about the front door. Today, I want to talk about your family room. So grab your Bible. You can open up to the 5th book of the Bible, Deuteronomy. That's where I'm going to be at today. So open up your Bible and a way to take notes today. Welcome into the online gathering here at the fellowship. All right, so I'm going to put an image up on the screen for you. It's going to be an old-time couch, and I'm just curious, how many of you used to have a couch like this? Yeah, come on. You know, you had a couch like this. This was a couch similar to me and our family when I was just a little boy. You remember these types of couches. In fact, many people put plastic over these couches to protect them. This was the couch when it was in our living room. When I was a little boy, that the kids didn't play on. This isn't the couch you went and slept on. There was no TV in this room. We didn't sit and watch TV. This was the couch when the adults came over, and this is where they sat and talked, or if there was a serious family conversation, this is the couch that we sat on. You know those couches that I'm talking about. For us, as Darlene and I, when we got married, though, we had to get our own couches. I grew up, my mom and dad had couches because the couch I've showed you on the screen, we had that couch, we just didn't sit on it a whole lot. But in the family room, there was a fireplace and a television, and that's the couch where life was done. That's the couch where memories were made. That's where lots of things took place. And you know that's kind of the conversation piece in a family room where you're sitting and chilling on the couch. Well, I don't know about you, but think about it this way. If couches could talk, think about the stories they could probably share with us. When Darlene and I first moved up to Buffalo, New York, our church was building a brand new church the first year we were there, and so there was a really nice resort hotel property near the airport there in Buffalo that was going to do a full renovation, and our church was getting ready to do a brand new church with all new furniture and stuff. And so somebody lined it up and said, hey, we could all go over. It was a really, really cold day, and there was no power inside, so we had our phone flashlights. And we were able to walk through this old hotel. It's where all the NFL football teams would always stay when they came to town. So there were lots of stories about it. And there was this one particular room, this really large suite. It was called the O.J. Simpson suite. And when you walk through it, there were a number of different rooms in there. And there was this striped couch in there. It was a sleeper sofa. It was in great shape. And I thought, oh man, I'd like to have that. So our church staff was able to walk through to get stuff for the church, but if we wanted something personal, we could as well. So I picked up a sleeper sofa. We had a basement in our home, and we put this sleeper sofa down in the basement of our home, and it became a conversation piece for us because we called it the O.J. Simpson couch, and that couch served us really, really well. It was the couch in the basement where the kids played video games and hung out, and when friends would come over to sleep, we could pull that mattress out and they could sleep on it. I mean, it could tell some stories. In fact, when we were first married, Darlene and I, in one of our first homes that we purchased, we needed a new couch for that. That was before Buffalo. We needed a new couch for that home. And my mom and dad had just picked up a beach home. They had picked up a second home up at the beach at Myrtle Beach. And so they were going to renovate it, and there was this wonderful blue sofa, sleeper sofa in the condo. And so we packed it up, put it on a U-Haul, took it back to our house in Atlanta, and that couch served us well. We had a basement in that home. That is a place where there was lots of laughter, lots of conversations. We had cousins spend the night on that couch. We had friends spend the night on that couch. We had discipleship groups and students spend the night on that couch. It's where I first learned how to play the Wii, sitting on that couch. I mean, think about if couches could talk, the stories that they could share. Think about all the valuables that have been lost in couches. From M&Ms dropped in between the seats to popcorn when you pull those cushions off. Or maybe like me, you've dropped your cell phone or the TV remote down there and it's hard to find. Sometimes you got to get out a flashlight. And if you don't pull those cushions off, if you've not pulled your cushions off in a while at your home, you might find some coins in there or some socks in there or some potato chips in there. But on that couch, we've watched movies, we've seen television shows, we've had conversations. Why? Because couches are a place where families and friends gather together, sit, hang out, talk. All of that happens in what's called the family room. I can tell you in the family room are places where there's been tears shed, there's been lots of laughter, there's been high-level decisions made. In my home, in the family room, is where our children often brought their dates. So, man, the family room serves a unique place in the life of all of us. And sitting on those couches, if they could just share the stories. Well, I want to transition you, getting you thinking today about that thought with something that's biblical that'll help us to understand this process that we're going through at Christmas time. The story today that I want to share with you is about a guy named Moses. Most of us in this room have heard about Moses. You've probably even seen the movie. Moses one day is standing before millions of homeless people out in the desert. There's this mass of humanity in front of him, and he wants to remind them. He wants to remind them of where they've come from. Now, in this group of people, many of them don't even remember the slavery that they had come from in Egypt. Enough time has passed. They've been nomads out in the desert and wandering around for several decades. And as they walked around, they didn't have permanent homes. There were no family rooms. There were no couches. They had tents to live in. And so Moses wanted to remind them of God's incredible provision. He's telling him, look, we're about to go into a land that God has promised us. It's a land, the Bible describes, a land flowing with milk and honey. And oh man, everybody got all excited. They probably were cheering it on. They were super excited about all of this. It almost sounded too good to be true for many of them. And the day that Moses stood and addressed the people that he was leading, they were on the brink of the Jordan River about to cross over into the Promised Land. And this Promised Land had been something they all had been looking forward to. Stories had been shared from generation to generation about this Promised Land. And as Moses stood in front of them, they're about to experience a new land. He wanted to remind them of something, and I wanted to share that with you this morning. Deuteronomy, it's in the Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the fifth book in the Bible. Open up to chapter 15, Deuteronomy chapter 15, starting in verse number 7. You've got the context. Moses standing in front of millions. They are homeless. They've been wandering around in the desert, living in tents, no permanent dwelling, no couches. And he stands to address them and he says, if anyone is poor among you, fellow Israelites, in any of the towns of the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not be disheartened or tight-fisted toward them. Rather be open-handed. Some translations say, be generous and freely lend them whatever they need. Now, this imagery is very easy for us to understand. We're either going to live tight-fisted, we talked about it last week, or we're going to live open-handed. When we're tight-fisted, man, we just take whatever we can and we clutch to it, we hold to it, we don't let anybody in, we don't let anybody have a piece of it. It's ours. Don't touch it, keep your hands off. But when we live with open-handedness, and Moses is even acknowledging this, it's a different way of living. And when you experience God's blessing, you have a response that is either, God, thank you for the blessing, and then you tight-fist it, you hold it to be yours only, or you go, God, thank you for the blessing, and you just become a conduit. It just passes right through. Well, Deuteronomy 15, as Moses is talking to his family, his friends, the people he's leading, he's sharing with them that his concern is that as we go into this promised land, we're all so excited, the blessings are coming. I don't want you to forget where you've come from. It's been a struggle. There have been many, many challenges. And Moses knew that the condition of the human heart was to forget the past. It was to forget when you experience the blessing, it's to forget the hardship that you've come from and maybe even the blessings of the past. For these people, they had experienced the miraculous things that God had done, like parting the Red Sea. And he says, hey, and many of these people weren't even there when when God parted the Red Sea. He says, I just don't want you to forget. When we were in need, God showed up. When we were a people in need and we needed God to deliver us, He did. Man, He miraculously delivered us from Egypt. In fact, when we left Egypt, our owners, the people that we were slaves to, they supplied us with gold and silver and food and clothing. They gave us riches so that we could be on our own. So we have left that land in which we had been enslaved many times, and God orchestrated beautifully for us to be blessed as we left. And while you've been in the wilderness, Moses is reminding them, don't forget, when you were hungry, God supplied food from heaven called manna. And when you were thirsty, a rock poured out plenty of water for all of us. And yet, I want to remind you that there came a point in time where you started to question God. Are we ever going to see the promised land? You built a golden calf and began to worship it. So the human tendency, whether we like it or not, our human tendency, and I know we can all relate to this, our human tendency is to live tight-fisted. It's to hang on to what we've got. And Moses is saying to the people, please, I need to remind you that oftentimes we forget what has been given to us, and we forget who gave it to us. And He is reminding them in Deuteronomy chapter 15, I don't want you to forget it. As we cross over the Jordan River into the Promised Land, I don't want you to forget what God has done for us. I don't want you to forget who it is that has blessed us. It has been our God. I don't want you to forget what has been given to you. And Moses has this sense of concern. He's concerned that as they go into the Promised Land and they begin to build new homes and establish their own family rooms, as they cultivate new crops in the Promised Land, as their families start to grow, that they would soon forget the God that had given it all to them. And what He's saying to them is, I want you to remember where you've come from. I want you to remember that today we're living in poverty and tomorrow you're going to be blessed. So I want to say to us as a church, remember the words of what Jesus said. It's more blessed to give than receive. I mean, isn't that really capturing the essence of what Christmas is all about? A life of giving is far greater, far better than a life that is constantly taking. When you're doing nothing but taking, you're living tight-fisted. When you become a person that's just allowing the blessings of God to flow through you, now you're living open-handed. And that is the reminder of what Moses is sharing with them. He's saying, be a joyful receiver of what God's given you, but also be a joyful giver. In other words, if I receive and I hold it tight-fisted, then it's not going from me to anyone else. I just become a person that allows God to work through me. Jesus has given this Christmas season to all of us in a unique and special way. On the very first Christmas, obviously, God sent His Son, who has given us eternal life. And we must joyfully accept. We must be willing to accept what Christ has done on the cross. But we also should be a joyful giver. We should be sharing, telling others about it. Just as you have been forgiven. You've received forgiveness. We should be a forgiving people. See, that's the point of what Moses is saying. If you live tight-fisted because you are forgiven, you will become somebody that doesn't forgive others. But when you live open-handed, you become somebody that is generous in the way you treat others. And you begin to give to those in need. One of my favorite Bible verses is in 2 Corinthians chapter 8. The Scriptures say in verse number 9, you know the generous grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Though He was rich, think about Jesus, though He was rich, yet for your sakes He became poor, so that by His poverty He could make you rich. I mean, that's really the essence of Christmas right there. Jesus leaving the splendor of heaven to come here to earth. A king to a baby. From great wealth to poverty. From a throne to a manger. From divinity to humanity. I mean, think about what the Christmas story is. Jesus is the ultimate giver. And this Christmas, I want to remind us that He has come and He has given us salvation to you and I. We said it last week, and I just want to remind you as we go through this collection of talks during the Christmas season, all are welcome into the family of God. Remember the welcome mat. Have a welcome mat at the very front of your heart, in your life. Just like you have a welcome mat to welcome people into your home, have a welcome mat in your life. Just embracing people, showing compassion on people, because God puts out a welcome mat for you and I. All of us are welcome into His family. And once you're in His family, so think about it in terms of a home. That's the front door, and once you're in the family, you come into the family room. That's where relationships are established. That's where conversations take place. And God begins to do a work, and the relationship is forged with God. You're spending time with Him. And it's there in these times that God begins to stir your heart, work in you, build you to become more like His Son, Jesus Christ. In fact, This gift of salvation is so significant. The Apostle Paul said in Ephesians chapter 2, listen carefully, God saved you by His grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. Don't we love gifts? Man, I like to receive gifts, but I even more enjoy giving gifts. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done, so none of us can boast about it. See, the key to living this type of a generous, giving life is to remember that this gift has been given to us by God Himself through His Son, Jesus Christ. We couldn't earn it. If we did, or if we could, we'd brag about it. That's what Paul is saying, man. We would make sure everybody knew, man, here's what I did to get my forgiveness. Here's what I did to inherit my eternal life. He says that's not the way it works. God has given this gift freely to all of humanity. It's just a matter of exercising your faith in Jesus Christ. So we must remember, that's the point today. We must remember where we've come from. We must remember who it is that has blessed us. It's God Almighty. Remember what God has done in pouring out His generosity on you so that you can, in return, don't live tight-fisted but open-handed and become generous during the Christmas season as well. I want to challenge you. Sometime during the Christmas season, maybe between watching Polar Express, Elf, and Home Alone, that at some point you'll take the time, maybe even gather up your family or some friends, and watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life. Now, when I say that, I realize you got to ignore the bad theology about angels and all that stuff. I get it. But pay attention to the theme of this movie. You got a guy named George Bailey who's going through the process of FOMO. He has got the fear of missing out on a wonderful life. And he's missing the whole point that he's living a wonderful life. And right in front of him is this wonderful life. And by the end of the film, he comes to the conclusion, a wonderful life is one spent on giving to others as a reflection on on what's been given to you. See, that's a wonderful life. We started this collection of talks by saying this year in Christmas of 2022, we're going to show compassion on people. We're going to have an empathy for others. We're going to make sure that we extend our welcome mat to all people. We're just going to be welcoming, inviting people into our lives with the hope that they would come to know Jesus Christ. And so we said, let's be compassionate. So there's two things that I want you to make sure you walk away with today. Just as a reminder, if you are a follower of Christ, number one, compassion. Compassion is represented by a welcome mat. A welcome mat at the front door of your life, showing empathy towards others, taking the time to hear their story. How could God use you to bless others during Christmas? Might cost you a little inconvenience. There may be a little uncomfortableness at times, but just like Jesus, show compassion on people. Show compassion on your neighbor. Show compassion on your classmate or your teammate or on your teacher or your boss or your coworker. Show compassion on the family member that irritates you. And just let's be a people of compassion. I want to say the second thing I want you to remember today is giving. Be a generous person. Rather than, as Moses said, living tight-fisted, live open-handed. Giving, it's best represented when we remember that God has given freely to us the greatest gift we've ever known, and that's the gift of salvation. Man, that gift outweighs any other gift you'll ever have in life. That gift supersedes everything. So if you don't know Jesus, I pray you would receive His free gift of eternal life today by simply repenting of your sin. It's acknowledging you're a sinner, believing in your heart that God sent Jesus. So do you believe that the Christmas story is true? Do you believe that God sent Jesus, born of a virgin, lived a sinless life, and then died on a cross, was buried for 3 days, and then rose again, taking your sin and my sin on Him? See, that's an issue. We didn't see it. That's an issue of faith. So when we place our faith in Him, He then in return gives us this gift of eternal life. So just as He has given freely to us, we're going to live open-handed, and as God blesses you, may you be a blessing to others. His primary vehicle, after Jesus rose from the dead and ascended back to heaven, His primary vehicle at work today is the church, doing the work through the church. So what is it that you have to give? Now, when we hear give, we immediately associate it with money. It could be, but maybe you've got time to give. Maybe you could start serving. Maybe you could reach out to us and say, hey, could I go down to New Missions, or could I go down to our partner John Langford at the Gathering and serve cast members? There are ways to give. Maybe go on a short-term mission trip with us this next summer. There's ways. Maybe it's just serving in the life of your church and giving of your time. It may be resources. It may be that God has blessed you financially and you're holding on. You're going, man, I don't know what the economy is going to do. I don't know what's going to happen next, so I'm just going to hang on. I'm just going to tell you, friend, God has blessed you. Be a blessing to others. Find ways. Maybe it's your skills, your talents, your giftedness from the Holy Spirit, and it's time to use those to build up the body of Christ and His church. It could be that it's time for you to share your grace story with someone or a group of people. What God has done in you in redeeming you, loving you, bringing you and welcoming you into His family. It's time to share your story of His grace with others. In fact, I'd like to close today by just saying, I saw this, what we're talking about, compassion and giving of generosity. I saw it in action just this week. This week I had breakfast with a group of our men. There's a prayer breakfast every single Wednesday morning. If you're interested in going to a prayer breakfast on Wednesday morning, we have a group of men that gather together in Leesburg for breakfast. And there's a young lady that serves them pretty much every single week and has been for months. And I had not met her before. I had not been to the breakfast in quite some time. And so I got there and I was introduced to her, and we exchanged some small talk. And she came in and got our orders and was going to place our orders. And we were about to go into a time of just sharing prayer requests and praying. And she heard us and she said, oh man, I sure could use some prayers. And so we obviously acknowledged it. And she shared a couple of things with us that she could use some prayers for. And so we did. We spent time praying for some of you and for the needs that were mentioned there, including this young single mom of 5 kids in her early 30s. After we had finished and everything was kind of wrapping up, she came back in the room and I said, hey, and I called her by name. I said, today's my first day to ever meet you. Thank you for sharing earlier. We had a chance to pray for you, but could you just share a little bit of your story with us? And she did. It was a remarkable story. A very powerful young lady that works very hard and very excited for Christmas coming. And we just had a wonderful conversation. And as everybody left, I went out to my car and got an invite for her to come to our church and came back in and chatted with her for a few more moments. But I saw what we're talking about today firsthand. I saw it in action by a group of men. Compassion for somebody that was in need. Compassion for a young single mommy. 5 kids. Compassion for somebody that's been serving them. Now, they said, you know what, we could give to her. And so they've begun already putting together how they could bless her during the Christmas season. And that's the point of our entire Christmas collection of talks. How can we show compassion on those who need it? That's what Jesus did. And how can we live open-handed? As God blesses you, man, please don't forget what He's done. Don't forget what He has brought you through. Don't forget where you've come from. As He blesses you, you become a blessing to others. That's the point. God's given you and I the ability as His children to become heirs to the throne of God. We have eternal life. Let's walk through this life with compassion and open hands. God, where today? When you wake up tomorrow, God, where today would you like to use me? God, as I go about my day, I've got a schedule, I've got a rhythm to my day. God, how will you use me today? And watch what God does. Church, live with compassion and be a generous giver. Let me pray for you. Father, we thank you I pray that I would be more compassionate, that I would be more generous. And I thank you for how you've worked in my heart during this sermon series. I thank you for what I saw in a group of our men as I sat across from Steve and I heard the compassion for this woman. God, thank you for some men that just said, you know what could we do to bless another person that's been serving us? And so, God, we pray that you would use all of us in this way. May we be a compassionate people and a generous people. May we not find ourselves living tight-fisted, but open-handed. And for anyone that doesn't know you, I pray today they would repent. They would say to you right now, God, forgive me. I'm a sinner. I know I am. And I'm asking for your forgiveness. And today I'm calling on the name of Jesus to save me. Forgive me of my sin and come into my life. I want to live my life for you. I believe that you died on a cross. I believe you rose again, and with everything I've got in me, I give my life to you and invite you into mine. Jesus, save me. And I pray that every person that gives their life in faith to you would follow you in believer's baptism to make it public. And we praise you and we thank you for this Christmas season. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thank you for being a part of the Fellowship Online gathering today. As always, we love having you here. And if we are your church home, would you be generous to us and financially support this ministry? Be a giver, be generous, live open-handed. And if you're in our area and you attend here, would you also be generous with your time and your talents? Because you are gifted people. If you're not in our area and you live outside of our area, I pray you are highly connected to a New Testament Bible teaching church where you can express your gifts there. We're just blessed. So let's remember today, kind of in a recap, we're going to be a compassionate people, and we're going to be open-handed, generous, giving people. Giving of our time, giving of our resources, giving of our skills and our talents, because God has blessed us. So let's live open-handed. Hey, all of you that are part of the Fellowship family and friends, I'm grateful that you allow us to have a small part of your Sunday, your week, your month. I'm so grateful. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your ongoing generosity. And as we wrap up this year, you might be a part of a company that needs to do end-of-year giving for a tax write-off. We would love for you to consider us to be a part of that. It helps us to continue supplying the gospel all around the globe. So thanks for being here today. We'll see you next week to continue in our collection of talks. Today, the front door, last week, the front door. Today, the family room. Go enjoy your family room and go win your day.